She was humiliated on her very first day. When legendary Professor Alexander Weiss looked coldly at her simple black cotton dress and said, "Are you sure you're in the right class?" "This is an opera stage, not a public library," the class erupted in laughter. One student whispered, "Probably someone who bought a standing ticket and wandered onto the stage." No one knew that just minutes later she would stand beneath the spotlight flawlessly singing one of opera's most demanding arias. And weeks later they would all bow before the truth. She was the Academy's primary benefactor. Lily Carter stood there, her hands clasped in front of her, the thin rims of her glasses catching the classroom's harsh light. The laughter stung, but she didn't flinch. She'd heard it before, different rooms, same cruelty. Years ago in a small town hall, kids had snickered at her plain shoes during a recital. Now at Artemis Royal Conservatory it was the same, just dressed up in fancier clothes. Her black dress, loose and unadorned, swayed slightly as she shifted her weight. Alexander Weiss, with his silver hair and tailored suit, leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrow and amused. The room was a sea of polished faces, girls with perfect curls, guys in designer blazers, all waiting for her to shrink. She lifted her chin, set her notebook on the desk, and sat down, her movements slow, deliberate, like she was claiming her space. "Before we go any further, can you do something for me? Grab your phone, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to this channel. It means the world to keep sharing stories like Lily's stories of heartbreak, truth, and rising above. It's a moment to connect, so let's keep this journey going together." All right, let's get back to her. The masterclass room at Artemis was a shrine to opera with velvet curtains, gold-trimmed walls, and a grand piano that gleamed like it belonged in a palace. This wasn't a place for ordinary people. You needed a name, a legacy, or at least a face that screamed star. Lily had none of that, not in their eyes. Her hair was tied low, no makeup, just those glasses and a dress that looked like it came from a thrift shop. Alexander flipped through the roster, his pen tapping the page. "Lily Carter," he said again, his voice dripping with disdain. "Are you the coffee server from the lobby?" "I don't recall the opera division admitting casuals like you." A girl in the front row, her diamond earrings sparkling, giggled. "That outfit belongs in a library archive, not La Scala," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. A guy with a silk scarf, some baritone with a trust fund, leaned over. "Bet she's here to clean the stage." The laughter rolled through the room, sharp and mean. During a vocal warm-up session, Lily stood at the back, her score open, following along quietly. A soprano with a pearl choker and perfectly manicured nails turned to her, her smile fake and sharp. "Why are you even here, library girl?" She said loud enough for the room to hear. "You think humming in the choir makes you a diva?" The others snickered, their voices blending into a cruel hum. She stepped closer, her choker glinting. "Go fetch the sheet music. That's more your speed." Lily's fingers tightened on her score, her glasses fogging slightly, but her face stayed calm. "I'm here to sing," she said, her voice low but clear. The soprano laughed, tossing her hair, and turned away, her friends joining in their laughter, echoing as Lily stood still, her ribbon trembling in the draft, her silence, a quiet defiance that made the room feel colder. Lily didn't move. Her hands stayed folded in her lap, her face calm. Alexander tossed a sheet of music toward her, letting it flutter to the floor. "Der Hölle Rache," he said, smirking. "The Queen of the Night aria. Let's see if you can even read it." The room buzzed expectant. That aria was a beast-high F6 notes, brutal runs, German diction that tripped up even prose. A girl with a velvet headband, her nails painted red, whispered, "She's gonna crash and burn." Lily stood, picked up the sheet music, and walked to the front. Her shoes clicked softly on the wood floor. She took a breath, steady and deep, and began to sing. Her voice soared, every note crystal clear, the high F6s landing like lightning. The room went still. The girl with the headband's jaw dropped. The baritone's scarf slipped. Even Alexander's pen froze, his hand trembling just a touch. When she finished, the silence was louder than the applause. In the conservatory's practice wing, Lily was adjusting a music stand when a group of tenors led by a guy with slicked-back hair and a gold watch blocked her path. "Library girl," he said, his voice loud and mocking. "You're taking up space real singers need." He knocked her score off the stand, the pages scattering across the floor. His friends laughed, one kicking a page under a chair. "Pick it up, sweetheart. That's your job, right?" A passing student glanced over but kept walking head down. Lily knelt, gathering the pages, her hand steady but her glasses slipping slightly. "I'm here to practice," she said, her voice even but firm. The tenor smirked, stepping over the last page as he left, his laughter echoing down the hall. Lily stood smoothing the crumpled pages, her jaw tight, her silence heavier than their cruelty. Alexander recovered fast. He leaned forward, his voice cold. "Technique can be taught," he said, like he was spitting the words. "What you lack is diva presence, the fire earned under real stage lights. Opera isn't a practice room. Your first true spotlight will reduce you to ashes." The class laughed, nervous now, following his lead. A woman in the back, her fur stole, slipping off her shoulder, nodded. "She sings like a robot," she said, loud enough to carry. "No soul." Lily's glasses glinted as she tilted her head just for a moment, then she walked back to her seat. "Yes, sir," she said, her voice soft but steady. Her hands smoothed her dress, but the way her fingers lingered on the fabric showed the weight of his words. One afternoon in the conservatory's library, Lily was photocopying scores when a librarian, a middle-aged woman with a tight bun and a pinched expression, approached. "You're that Carter girl, aren't you?" She said, her voice sharp. "This isn't a charity. These machines are for serious students, not hobbyists." She snatched the score from Lily's hands, tossing it onto a nearby table where a group of students snickered. "Go use the public library," she added, loud enough for the room to hear. Lily stood still, her hands empty, her glasses catching the light. "I'm a student here," she said, her voice calm but edged with steel. The librarian huffed, walking away as the students' laughter grew louder. Lily picked up her score, her fingers trembling slightly, and resumed copying her silence, a rebuke that made the room feel smaller. Professor Elena Rossi, a guest instructor from Milan, was the first to notice something off. She was older, with sharp eyes and hands that moved like she was still conducting an orchestra. During a lecture on Verdi, she stopped, her gaze landing on Lily in the back row. "Miss Carter," she said, her accent thick but warm. "You're familiar." The room shifted, curious. Lily didn't answer, just held her gaze, her glasses catching the light. Elena's eyes widened. "Lily Carter, weren't you the anonymous soprano who won the Verdi Rising Star competition at age 20? The class went silent. The girl with the diamond earrings stopped twirling her hair. The baritone's smirk faded. Alexander, standing nearby, narrowed his eyes but said nothing. Lily adjusted her glasses, her face calm. "That was a long time ago, Professor," she said, her voice low but firm. Elena stared like she was seeing a ghost. During a rehearsal for a minor recital, Lily was assigned a duet, but arrived to find her partner a mezzo with a silver bracelet and a haughty smile, refusing to sing with her. "I'm not performing with the library girl," she said, her voice carrying across the stage. "It's embarrassing. I have a reputation." The director, a young man with a nervous tic, didn't intervene, just shuffled his papers. The class laughed, their voices sharp. Lily stood there, her score in hand, her glasses fogging slightly. "I'll sing alone if I have to," she said, her voice steady but quiet. The mezzo rolled her eyes, walking off stage, her bracelet glinting. Lily stepped forward, her ribbon swaying, and sang her part alone, her voice clear and strong, silencing the laughter but not the sting. The conservatory's archive room was dim, filled with yellowed programs and cracked leather scores. Lily was there one evening, flipping through a dusty book of arias, when a group of students burst in. The girl with the velvet headband led them, her red nails tapping her phone. "Library girl," she said, her voice loud and mocking. "You're not fooling anyone with that competition nonsense. Probably paid someone to sing for you." The others laughed, one snapping a photo, the flash harsh in the dark room. Lily closed the book, her hands steady. "I'm just here to study," she said, her voice even. The girl stepped closer, her headband gleaming. "Study? You don't belong here. Go back to your bookshelves." Lily's glasses glinted as she stood, tucking the book under her arm. She walked past them, her shoes clicking, her silence louder than their laughter. One morning, a janitor, an older man with calloused hands, approached Lily in the hallway, holding a faded program from a recital years ago. "Found this in storage," he said, his voice gruff but kind. "It's you, isn't it? Singing Mozart at 16, standing ovation in Chicago." He handed her the program, the edges worn, showing a young girl in a plain dress, her face lit by stage lights. Lily took it, her fingers brushing the paper, her eyes softening for a moment. "Thank you," she said, her voice low but warm. She tucked it into her notebook, her ribbon catching the light. A group of students nearby, watching, fell silent, their usual smirks gone. One whispered, "Is that really her?" The question hung unanswered as Lily walked away, the program a quiet proof of her past. The Royal Gala was coming up, the conservatory's biggest night. Critics, opera house directors, record label scouts, everyone who mattered would be there. Lily had been preparing a piece, working late in the practice rooms, her voice echoing through the empty halls. One morning, Alexander posted the gala roster on the main board. Her name wasn't on it. He stood nearby, his suit crisp, his smile thin. "The gala stage isn't a playground for internet phenomena," he said, loud enough for the crowd to hear. "Only true artists belong here." A girl with a silk shawl, her eyes sharp, whispered, "Good." She'd embarrass us all. The tenor in the leather jacket nodded. Library girl on a gala stage. Disaster. Lily stood at the back of the crowd, her notebook in hand, her face calm. She didn't speak, just turned and walked away, her ribbon swaying slightly, but her hands trembled as she closed her notebook. At a vocal coaching session, Lily was waiting her turn when a bass with a custom-made tie pin stepped in front of her, cutting her off. "Library girl, you're not singing today," he said, his voice booming. "This coach is for real talent, not charity cases." The room laughed, the coach looking away, uncomfortable but silent. The bass tossed his score onto her chair, knocking her notebook to the floor. "Stay in your lane," he said, turning away. Lily knelt to pick up her notebook, her glasses slipping slightly, her hand steady but her jaw tight. "I'm here to learn," she said, her voice clear but quiet. The bass laughed, his tie pin glinting as he walked off, but Lily's silence lingered, a quiet strength that made the coach pause, his eyes flickering with unease. The news of her exclusion spread fast. At dinner, the dining hall buzzed with it. A mezzo-soprano with a gold bracelet leaned over her table, her voice loud. Can you imagine Library Girl trying to sing for La Scala Scouts? She'd choke. The others laughed, their forks clinking against plates. Lily sat alone, her soup untouched, her book open, but her eyes distant. A waiter, an older man with gray hair, paused by her table, setting down a glass of water. "Don't listen to them," he said, his voice low. "I heard you practice last night. You've got something real." Lily looked up, her glasses fogging slightly. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft but warm. The waiter nodded and moved on, but her fingers lingered on the glass like she was holding onto his words. During a lecture on stage movement, a costume assistant, a young woman with a clipboard and a smug smile, singled out Lily in front of the class. "You in the back," she said, pointing. "That dress is a disgrace. You look like you're auditioning for a funeral, not an opera." The room erupted in laughter, students turning to stare. "We can't all afford couture," she added, her voice dripping with mock pity. Lily stood, her glasses catching the light, her hands folding her notebook closed. "I'm here for my voice, not my clothes," she said, her voice steady but sharp. The assistant smirked, flipping her clipboard. "Good luck with that," she said, turning away. Lily sat down, her ribbon trembling slightly, her silence heavier than the room's laughter. The gala night arrived, and the conservatory's grand hall was a sea of glamour gowns, tuxedos, chandeliers casting golden light. Lily was there not as a performer, but as an usher handing out programs at the door. Her black dress looked plainer than ever against the glittering crowd. A woman in a sequined gown, her perfume sharp, snatched a program from her. "You're that library girl, aren't you?" she said, her voice carrying. "Thank God they didn't let you sing. This stage is for stars." She laughed, her friends joining in, their voices echoing. Lily handed the next program, her hands steady, but her ribbon trembled as she moved. A stagehand nearby, adjusting a light, caught her eye and gave a small nod, his face grim. She kept working, her silence a shield. Before the gala began, a retired opera critic, his glasses thick and his cane tapping the floor, approached Lily at the program table. "I heard you sing at the practice rooms last week," he said, his voice low but clear. "You're the Maddox heir, aren't you? I reviewed your mother's debut in '85. Same fire in your voice." Lily paused, her hands on a stack of programs, her eyes softening for a moment. "That was kind of you to say," she said, her voice quiet but warm. She handed him a program, her ribbon catching the light. The critic nodded, tapping his cane, and walked away. A few students nearby, overhearing, exchanged glances, their smug expressions faltering, the air shifting with a quiet truth. Then everything changed. Isabella Fontaine, the legendary diva, headlining the gala, stepped onto the stage to announce her performance. Her voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. She paused, her hand gripping the microphone, and scanned the room. Her eyes landed on Lily, standing at the back, program in hand. "I can't sing tonight. Isabella said, her voice cracking but firm. But I know who can. She pointed to Lily. She was my anonymous online student when she was 18. I know exactly who can save tonight's stage. The room gasped. The girl with the silk shawl dropped her champagne glass. Alexander, standing backstage, froze, his face pale. Lily didn't move at first, her glasses catching the spotlight. Then she set the programs down, walked to the stage, and stood in the light. In the wings, just before Lily stepped on stage, a wardrobe mistress, an older woman with gray streaks in her hair, handed her a simple shawl. "It was your mother's," she whispered, her eyes bright. She wore it for her first Tosca. "Take it." Lily's fingers brushed the soft fabric, her glasses fogging for a moment. She draped the shawl over her shoulders, her movements slow, her face calm, but her hands trembling slightly. The wardrobe mistress stepped back, her hands clasped as Lily walked into the spotlight. A few students in the wings watching fell silent, their usual mockery replaced by a quiet awe, the shawl a silent testament to a legacy they hadn't seen coming. Backstage, Alexander lost it. She'll crumble under real stage pressure. He shouted, his voice echoing through the wings. Someone who's never stood before a real audience will crack under the lights. No technique can save her now. The faculty nearby shifted uneasy. A stage manager, her headset slipping, muttered, "He's scared." Lily stood in the wings, adjusting her glasses, her face calm. She smoothed her dress, her hands steady, and stepped toward the stage. A makeup artist rushing past paused and whispered, "You've got this." Lily nodded, her ribbon catching the light, her silence louder than Alexander's rage. The stage was golden, the spotlight warm but unforgiving. Lily stood there, her black dress stark against the opulence, her glasses glinting. The orchestra began, the opening notes of Tosca's Visidarte filling the hall. Her voice rose raw and breathtaking, every note soaked in emotion. She moved with a grace nobody expected, her presence commanding the stage. The high notes soared effortless, her diction perfect. The audience leaned forward, caught in her spell. The girl with the diamond earrings stopped whispering. The tenor in the leather jacket's jaw tightened. When the final note faded, the hall erupted, people leaping to their feet. Lily bowed once, small and quiet, and stepped back. No smile, just a glance at Alexander, sharp and final. After the performance, a board member, a woman with silver hair and a no-nonsense demeanor, approached Lily backstage holding a leather-bound ledger. "This was found in the founder's office," she said, her voice steady. "It details every donation from the Maddox Opera Foundation signed by your mother. She named you as her successor." Lily's hand paused on her shawl, her eyes flickering with something raw but fleeting. She nodded, her glasses catching the light. The board member handed her the ledger, its weight heavy in her hands. A few faculty members nearby, overhearing, exchanged glances, their faces pale. The ledger was a quiet thunderclap, a truth that shifted the air, leaving Alexander's protests hollow. The academy director took the stage, his face beaming but serious. "We proudly announce," he said, his voice carrying, "Lily Carter is the sole heir of the Maddox Opera Foundation, which funds 70% of this conservatory's operating budget." The room froze. The woman in the sequined gown choked on her wine. Alexander's hands clenched, his face ashen. Lily turned to him, her glasses catching the light. "Thank you, Professor," she said, her voice calm but heavy. "It's your dismissal that led me here." She didn't wait for his response, just walked off stage, her shoes clicking, her ribbons swaying. The applause roared behind her, louder than any aria. At a post-gala reception, a group of donors cornered Lily near the buffet, their smiles false and their voices loud. "So you're the charity case who got lucky," one said, a man in a tuxedo with a gold cufflink, his tone dripping with condescension. "Don't think one performance makes you a star. This world eats people like you." His friends laughed, their glasses clinking. Lily set down her plate, her hands steady, but her ribbon trembled slightly. "I'm here for the music," she said, her voice clear but sharp. The man chuckled, turning away, but a server nearby balancing a tray gave Lily a small nod, his eyes fierce. Her silence lingered, a quiet power that made the donors' laughter sound hollow. The fallout came quick. Alexander was suspended as head of the department the next day. His name vanished from the conservatory's programs, his office cleared out by the end of the week. The girl with the diamond earrings, caught mocking Lily on a leaked video, lost her chance at a major opera house audition. Her social media went dark, her followers dropping like flies. The tenor in the leather jacket who'd bragged about his family's opera connections was exposed for faking his audition portfolio. His scholarship was revoked, his name a whisper of failure. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just the truth catching up steady and cold like a tide rolling in. In the weeks that followed, a retired soprano, a legend in the opera world, sent Lily a letter, its envelope sealed with wax. "I taught your mother in her early days," it read. "She hid her wealth to sing for love, not fame. You're her mirror." Enclosed was a small gold locket engraved with the Maddox crest. Lily opened it, revealing a tiny photo of her mother on a stage, her face lit with passion. Lily's fingers brushed the locket, her glasses fogging for a moment. She tucked it into her pocket, her face calm but her hands trembling slightly. The letter left on her desk was found by a student who shared it online. The story spreading like wildfire, a quiet triumph that reshaped Lily's shadow into light. Lily didn't stop moving forward. She became director of the conservatory's new merit-based opera program, where talent was the only currency. The halls changed. You'd see students in worn jeans carrying scores, their voices raw but fearless. A kid with a faded backpack practiced arias in the courtyard, his notes soaring. Lily's office door stayed open, her desk covered in schedules and budgets. She still wore her black dresses, her hair tied low, her glasses plain. But when she walked through the halls, people nodded, not out of fear but respect. Her words now engraved above the main hall read, "The highest note isn't found in your throat. It lives in how you rise above humiliation." One afternoon, as Lily was leaving a rehearsal, a young stagehand barely out of high school approached her with a nervous smile. "I found this in the prop room," he said, holding out a worn score of Tosca annotated in her mother's handwriting. "It's yours, right? I heard you sing it." Lily took the score, her fingers tracing the faded ink, her eyes softening. "Thank you," she said, her voice low but warm. She tucked it under her arm, her ribbon catching the light. The stagehand grinned, walking away as a few students nearby watched their usual smirks replaced by curiosity. The score was a quiet bridge to her past, a truth that made her presence undeniable. One evening outside the conservatory, Lily paused by the fountain, her coat pulled tight against the spring chill. A car pulled up, an old sedan, its paint chipped but clean. She glanced at it, her glasses fogging in the cool air, and her face softened like she was seeing a memory, a small-town recital, a mother's hand on her shoulder. The car's window rolled down, and an older woman inside, her hair gray, gave a small wave. Lily nodded back, her hand brushing her ribbon, and kept walking. The car drove off, its taillights fading. Nobody else saw, but it was the kind of moment that said everything. During a masterclass, a visiting conductor known for his brutal critiques paused after hearing Lily practice in the wings. "You," he said, pointing at her, his voice gruff but curious. "I heard that voice in Vienna years ago at a small recital. You were unbilled but unforgettable." He pulled out a program from his bag, its edges worn, listing an anonymous soprano. Lily's hand paused on her score, her glasses catching the light. "That was me," she said, her voice quiet but firm. The room went still, students exchanging glances, their laughter replaced by a quiet awe. The conductor nodded, tucking the program away, his respect. A silent thunderclap that shifted the room's air. Her first major performance came months later at the Met. The announcement was quiet, just a line in the program, "Lily Carter, soprano." No hype, no fanfare. But the house was packed, critics, opera stars, even a few Artemis snobs, their faces tight. She walked out in a simple black gown, no jewelry. Her glasses gone, her hair still tied with that ribbon. The program was Puccini, Mozart, Verdi. Her voice filled the hall raw and alive, every note a story. The standing ovation lasted 8 minutes. She bowed once, a small nod, and left the stage. Backstage, a man waited, tall, quiet, his suit understated but sharp. Her husband. He took her hand, his fingers warm, and said nothing. The room around them shifted, people stepping back, their whispers fading. Nobody needed to say his name. His presence was enough. Lily didn't look back at the old Artemis crowd. Didn't need to. She'd walked through their laughter, their cruelty, their dismissal, and come out stronger. Not because she fought them, but because she never let them define her. Her silence, her grace, her quiet power, it was louder than any aria she sang. The conservatory was hers now in spirit and truth. And the world knew it. For those who've been judged, looked down on, told you don't belong, you know what that moment feels like. You weren't wrong for staying quiet. You weren't weak for holding your ground. You were enough just as you were, and you were never alone. Where are you watching from? Leave a comment below and hit follow to walk with me through heartbreak, betrayal, and finally healing.